but should be working. And Karen, if you just give me a heads up, Karen, are we highlighted, John and I, on your screen?
Well, I think you're sharing your screen, so I see that in the middle, and you're up, in the upper right-hand corner.
And John, correct?
Yes, yes.
Great,
yes.
Perfect. That's the setup. Good. Thanks, Karen. So good morning, everyone. This is going to be a fun program. I've been doing these programs as part of the Managing Partner University for, I think we've done 6 or 7 at this point. We do them every 2 weeks. John has been kind enough to co-host with me, and I'm delighted that John has joined me again today.
It's good to be here, Uri, and the role change will be fun. I'll like being the panelist and have you grill me.
I am looking forward. I got some killer questions for you, John.
I'm ready.
Good. Let's move on. John, hit those slides.
That's right. I'm in charge of the slides, everybody. So if there are technical issues on the slides, you got to look at me. I'm sorry.
Today we can blame John. Everyone knows me. I'm Uri Gutfreund. I'm with Ames Gough. We are a national leading insurance broker specializing in mid-law firms, and we do lots of educational programs. Today I am joined with John Remsen. John, as he says often, my partner in crime. No crime has been committed, though the DA may try and find one. But I'm delighted to have John here with me today. Thanks again, John.
It's not a crime unless you're convicted.
There you go. Good. Moving on. As I said, we do these every 2 weeks, 8:45 to 9:30 a.m. is our run program. At 9:30 to 9:45, we will have question and answer for those of you who would like to stick around, but our scheduled program will end at 9:30. I've asked John, but we do ask our guests in advance if they will stay, and luckily John has agreed today as well. So we have questions from 9:30 to 9:45, as well as you can ping us with questions through the technology as we go as well. You can sign up weekly, as many of you do, based on my emails. You also can let me know, just send me an email and I will sign you up. VIP registration means you're automatically signed up, so you can let me know. Our next webinar before we jump into today's program will be on April 10th, again at 8:45, how to foster a rainmaking culture at your firm. I mean, this is such an important topic. John and I will be interviewing Elise Holtzman, joining us for that program. And it's just so important. One of the things that managing partners have said to me, especially over the last 2 or 3 months, is as the world has changed, culture has taken a beating, and rainmaking culture in particular has taken a beating. So I'm happy to be focusing on that topic. And then as we jump into today's specific program, I want to thank Webster Bank, our sponsors. Webster Bank, if you are looking for that regional touch bank, you probably have heard of them, and now you know they have a law firm group that's quite good at Webster Bank. And Precise, which is the outside financial consultants and coaches for law firms. Again, many of you know Precise. They're fantastic. They've worked with us on our annual financial survey, and they're also one of our generous sponsors for today. And so we thank them for their sponsorship. So, John?
So, Uri, if I've been a First Republic customer or a Signature Bank customer, where should I take my deposits?
Definitely speak to Webster Bank.
I think it's Webster Bank. Webster Bank. Interesting week with the banks, and Uri and I do some Zoom calls with folks who come to our conferences, and that was the hot topic. Is how do you deal with it in terms of your firm and its assets, its owners' assets and clients, and it's been an interesting week, particularly for firms up in New York City. Most of you guys know me. We've been working with law firms for 30 years, mid-sized firms. I'm not a lawyer, but sometimes I'll let people get away with that assumption depending on the circumstances. We always like to bring the live polling technology to these programs. And if there's a foul up on the voting, we kick it back to Uri on this one. But our first, to get a sense, see how that works? To get a sense of our crowd sizes, tell us how many lawyers you have at your firm. We have a few more live polling questions as we go through today's topic. But that's our kind of warm up. Uri?
Vote early, vote often. John's from Atlanta. He knows how to count votes.
Right. We'll audit this and recount if necessary up to 3, maybe 4 or 5 times.
Until you get the results you want, John. Is that the way it works?
Well, for some.
Okay. I'm going to end the polling now. There we go.
And
Okay.
I can't see the results, Uri. I don't know if I'm supposed to, but
Oh, that's
mostly,
interesting.
yeah, mostly
Says I'm
smaller,
sharing
mid-sized.
it. I think it might be you, John.
Maybe.
Karen, my friend, checking with tech. Karen, can you see the results?
Yes, we saw the results.
Okay, so John, it looks like you are alone on that, not seeing the results. I will tell you,
Not the
a
first time.
third of our participants are less than 20 lawyers. 56% are squarely in that 20 to 49 lawyers, and 11% of us are greater than 100 lawyers.
Okay, cool. I'll keep that in mind. And Uri, I think we need to put Karen on the payroll.
Yeah, thanks,
You know,
Karen.
we need to make her the IT director. So thanks for that input, everybody. And I'll try to, put my thoughts and comments in the context of our firm sizes, mostly mid-sized firms. We do a survey every other year among managing partners at mid-sized firms. And we're going to be launching the 2023 survey later this week or early next. I hope all of you will participate because folks love the benchmarking data they can bring back to their firms and hopefully, get some things going, persuade some partners to do some things. And so we're in the process of, we'll soon be in the process of collecting our data for 2023. But I thought for purposes of this conversation, I'd bring on the data we collected in 2021, not that long ago. We were in the midst of COVID. Leadership was being challenged big time, in many cases like never before. We asked 48 questions, 213 managing partners weighing in. And we ask a section that gets to your role as a firm leader, how much time you invest in the role, how you get paid for that time. Do you have a job description? So I'm going to share some of that data with you. And as we get into this, let me ask folks on the call, another polling question, Uri, do your partners fully appreciate and value all this non-billable, I like the term firm building, much better than non-billable, contributions to the firm? Do your partners value that? Yes,
John, I'm
no,
going to open up,
kind of, sort of.
I'm going to open up that poll in a second. But John, what do you think people are going to say?
No.
Okay.
No.
You think it's going to be a square, solid? We won't have, we can't hear the tone in this, but let's see how people vote. So do your partners appreciate what you do?
Fully value and
appreciate.
appreciate.
Fully,
Fully, that's a key
value,
word.
Appreciate. Yeah, but you gave us a kind of, sort of as one of the potentials,
I did.
John. So,
and is
so
that the
kinda
number
takes
one
it
answer? I can't see the results.
No, not yet. People are voting. I'm going to let them vote and then I'm going to put you on the spot one more time, John. Maybe you want to think about that a little bit more, or you're sure of it?
I think most managing partners will
Yes.
tell you that my partners don't fully value and appreciate all this time, all these distractions that I have to deal with as managing partner, that they don't, because they can go about practicing law or doing business development, whatever they do. So I hear that common lament. My partners don't fully value and appreciate.
And I'm going to ask you a question in a second about
Are
that.
you baiting me to give the correct?
No,
correct
John,
answer?
it's all over the place. Can you see the results, John, or should I read
I
it to you?
cannot. I cannot.
Okay, so 40% of our participants say, yes, my partners fully value and appreciate.
Good.
10% say, no, they don't appreciate. And 50%, and this is the problem when you give the kind of, sort of option. And that's a John specialty, folks. If you've been on John's programs, the kind of, sort of, that's not legal words. That's not even proper English. John loves that, kind of, sort of. So 50% said kind of, sort of. John,
well, I think they
why
should.
do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
I think they should fully value and appreciate your leadership because it's really, really important. And I would argue far more important than the billable hour. David Maister writes about this. Billable hours, that's important for today's income. And we need those billable hours. But what we do with our investment time, leadership, business development, mentoring, training. That's going to determine our future. And I think often we get shortchanged. Lawyers tend to be very short term in their focus, scrambling to keep up. And often these well-intended, important things get kind of pushed to the wayside. It's like Covey writes in, skills of highly effective people. Find the leadership and the time it takes to be an effective firm leader.
John,
so that's kind of what we preach.
John, I know we're gonna fly through some data, folks, here that John's collected and culled for today, and then John's gonna hit us with 10, 10, right, John? 10.
There are more.
Them. There are more, but you culled it down to 10. I counted 10 highly effective solutions, highly effective strategies. But you're going to quickly share this data from the 21 to bring
correct
context. For
just for context, because I think there's something here. If you're trying to, argue that we should have a job description for our managing partner, or, we should find a better, more formal way to compensate our managing partner. And that may not be you, it may be your successor. And I think among the best gifts you can leave your successor is a job description that sets forth the time, the authorities, the responsibilities of the leadership role. Here's our sample size in terms of sizes of lawyers. Note the titles here. Firms bestow on their leadership: managing partner, 60%, managing shareholder, managing partner, what have you. But we're starting to see chief executive officer, president, more corporate titles. Some of that's associated with how your entity is set up. Are you a PA, an LLC, what have you? But, less managing and more leadership. And that's one of the themes I really want to put forth today, is this notion of the difference between managing, keeping things running on time, versus leadership, which is inspiring the future and getting people excited about where we're going. And there is a difference between leadership and management. And I think a lot of managing partners get caught up in spending too much time on the management side. Somebody's got to do it. But it shouldn't be the managing partner, in my opinion, dealing with HR, IT, more day-to-day administrative type issues. How long have you served in the role? Most managing partners have that once they find their way into the role, they enjoy it, they stick around a while. Our friend Patrick McKenna has done research on the average tenure of a managing partner, 11 years. This is at the AmLaw 200. Most serve under 3-year terms, and they are not term limited. But there's a mechanism where they've got to face the shareholders and get a vote of confidence. It's not, a dictatorship and you're managing partner for life, unless, of course, you're the founder of the firm, and then you can kind of do whatever you want. How much time do you invest? All over the place here. And again, this is a wide sample size of firm sizes. Generally speaking, the larger the firm, the more likely it might be a full-time role. Smaller firms, less of a full-time role. And I John, frequently.
Go ahead. You frequently.
No, you shoot, Uri.
Oh, I was going to say, we did a poll a couple of weeks ago in our weekly poll of the week, and it was this exact question: how much time do you invest? And we saw that 2 to 3 days a week for small and mid-sized firms is the average.
Right there in the middle, yeah.
And I think that's just not we don't have to go back to it, but that slide where you showed how people well, when we were talking about compensation, do they fully appreciate? And I know we're going to look at a slide on that. I think that's sort of out of whack. I think it takes more and more time now to lead a firm, and to not get adequately compensated for that is, it's a mistake. And as I always say, if you have a tough time selling the job to the next guy, to become the managing partner, there's something wrong, right? There's something wrong with the gig if you can't convince the next one to do it. It takes half your time and the comp is pretty minimal. That's just not reasonable. And you're not going to convince someone else to take it over for you.
Well, and hence I think the notion of a job description and clearer expectations and
Yep.
definition of responsibilities and authorities. It's awfully loosey-goosey among a lot of smaller and mid-sized firms as to how we make decisions, how we acquiesce to leadership. You know, there's leadership, but there's also followship. And your partners are good firm citizens and go along with the program, support the program. And I find in, those powerful partners that don't like a lot of structure and accountability tend to be drawn to smaller mid-sized firms where they could flex their might a bit more and get away with disruptive or non-compliant behavior. I'm looking at the time, Uri, and we're going to 9:30, correct?
Correct, on our formal program.
So
Yep. Let's move.
Why don't we ask this crowd as to whether or not you have a formal job description? I use the word formal intentionally. It might be embedded in your shareholder agreement. It might be a separate document that sets forth the responsibilities of a managing partner in writing. Do you have a formal description? Yes, no, or the old catch-all, kind of, sort of?
Yeah, this is a little harder to have a kind of sort of, because you did write formal job description, John. But yeah, so on this,
Formal.
yeah, so on this poll results, where I'm just going to wait. There's one person who didn't vote. It's actually two people who didn't vote yet. I'll let them vote. So, do you have a formal job description? Yes, no, or kind of, sorta. John, what do you think people are going to say?
No.
Yeah, 82% of people said no, we do not, and that's right. That's right. Did I? Oh, let me
And,
share it.
as an
Yep.
MBA type, I'm thinking, what are you, crazy? To take that leap to into this kind of ill-defined role and know that you're going to be valued, appreciated, properly compensated. Well, you're taking a leap. You're taking a leap. And it's amazing to me how many managing partners do kind of take the leap, take the role without a formal job description. Here's our polling of that 213 set of firms. This is a national sampling. Firms, generally a bit larger than those on the call, but 20% say yes, and we follow it. Yes, but we don't pay much attention to it. That's 17%. And 56% say it's a work in progress. But I'm an advocate of job descriptions. We have examples on the MPF website. If you'd like to see some examples of a job description for a managing partner, for a law firm administrator, I think it's important to codify these roles. I go a step farther and suggest you get job descriptions for your practice group leaders, your department heads, your committee chairs, because if they're doing a good job, they're investing some time into these roles. And, what authorities do I have as the head of the litigation department or, the diversity, equity, and inclusion committee chair? What's in it other than, I want to be a good citizen? I think defining roles is an important exercise. Damn well, you better believe that the AmLaw 200 are a little more formal and structured around these roles than most smaller and mid-sized. Here's how they're selected, managing partners. 32% consensus. 50% say we go through a formal election process. I like election. I like blind ballots. I like one person, one vote. That's just my kind of preference. A lot of firms will go, on percentages, but I like the idea of a 3-year term, a little more structure and accountability, and an election with blind ballots. Now, this is a slide that we asked this question. We've been asking this question for 20 years.
Yep.
And it hasn't changed much. And we hope maybe there's a little change, especially as we have come through COVID, and I think people are a little more responsive to leadership than they were going in. But where do you believe to be your most important contributions in your role as managing partner? Pick your top 3, and we presented a drop-down menu. Well, long-term strategic goals, straying off that billable hour. Hard to get folks to focus on the non-billable stuff when they, got to meet their 1,600-hour billable hour expectation. Leading change. among a bunch of people who don't like change. Lawyers tend to be resistant to risk and change. Building consensus among a bunch of folks who tend to like autonomy. Those claims are based on Larry Richards' research about the lawyer personality. It's not easy leading lawyers. Building consensus, getting folks rowing in the same direction toward shared vision and long-term goals. There's day-to-day administration down at number 4. But look what gets lost. Calling out bad behavior, dealing with chronically underperforming partners, getting some attention on succession planning. These are really important things, but look how far down the list they are, in terms of what managing partners tell us are their most important contributions in the leadership role. Now, we flip it around and say, where do you really spend your time? And day-to-day admin eats it up. Putting out fires, dealing with HR. We got an IT issue. I got a partner who's unhappy over something. Got to go talk him or her off the ledge.
John,
day-to-day administration.
Why do you think day-to-day administration takes over?
Because generally, I think law firms are undermanaged.
Okay.
Undermanaged, and somebody's got to do it. If we've got an HR crisis, or somebody's got to do it. And I don't have a strong, competent COO. COO at my side. In our conference calls this past couple of months, Uri, we did a rose thorn bud exercise, and several managing partners say, you know what my rose was in 2022? Hiring a real COO.
Right.
So I can get the day-to-day administrivia off my desk, and it's been a life changer. Hiring somebody who's competent, trusted, maybe with some law firm experience. These people are out there as these mergers go down. A lot of former principal administrators are looking, they don't want to be a branch office administrator. They want to climb back to the number 1 chair. So there's talent out there as firms merge and consolidate, but I'm all about hiring a trusted, competent COO. Maybe you have a good active executive committee, and somebody's in charge of HR, somebody's in charge of technology, somebody's in charge of marketing and business development. So it doesn't all fall on you all the time. You're giving up a lot to take on the leadership role in terms of book building, in terms of, practicing law. We saw how much time people commit to these roles, and don't let it get eaten up with the day-to-day. Because look what happens. There go the strategic goals and the leading change. And those are very, very important contributions. Uri, do you have comment to that? I'm sure, you see it fairly commonly among your managing partner groups.
I think that's exactly right. We are seeing that in a lot of our groups. I think it's you alluded to it. There's 2 problems. Number 1, who else is going to do it? Whether they have a COO or a strong management committee, that they can take that role off. And I'm concerned, and I think rightly so, it's under management and not having that other professional at the top. I forget who says it, but the chairman and CEO of Ford does not do the scheduling for the line workers, does he? Of course not.
Not the last time I read, maybe occasionally just to show the flag, but not day in, day out. Of course not. But listen up. Those COOs are out there, and if you got to convince your partners though, because this is overhead, and we're going to go hire somebody for $250,000 a year, and they're overhead.
Yep.
It's a game changer because it frees up the time of the managing partner, the department heads, to go do what they do, which is practice law, bring clients, mentor associates. These folks can be game changers. I've helped several firms the past few years recruit COOs, and you got to do the due diligence, do a really good search. But man, it can change life for you as a managing partner. How you paid for all this non-billable stuff? Well, I'm just trusting my partners. They'll take good care of me. Number one answer.
Yeah.
No direct compensation for the role. On down we go. How managing partners get paid. I like the idea of some sort of stipend based upon the anticipated time in the role. Plus, why not a percentage of firm profit or some pretty big discretionary bonus for job well done? McKenna goes back. I allude to Patrick McKenna. He does a lot of work with managing partners at big firms. And he would suggest that for every 3 years in the role, you need 1 year of protection. If you want to go back to practicing law, it'll take a while to get your book ramped up, get your numbers back up. So make sure you got some protection on the backside in terms of your compensation package. But, it's just
John,
shocking to me that this is so, managing partners are so trusting.
John, I just want to give a little pushback on this, and I want to ask your opinion on this, and because I think it's deeper, which I think a lot of managing partners would say there's no direct compensation. In fact, the direct compensation that I'm aware of is piddly. I mean, like tiny. I got $25,000 exactly, and that's just insignificant. So but of course that's not the only guy. I think a lot of people would say I get it back in the compensation. Alternatively, I built this firm. My name's on the door. Who else would do it?
Well, that's a different scenario if we're still dealing with the founding partner, large and in charge. And that's a whole lot different than if we'd gone through a few generations and have seen a few cycles of leadership. I get in there from time to time when the founder's ready to go and there's a little bit of a leadership vacuum in terms of, who's going to take over the ship when I leave. There's nobody to do the job. So it's never too early to start identifying and grooming future leaders. And in fact, that's our next question is, are you in fact grooming your successor? And most say no. And I would think don't even go into the role unless you've got an exit plan in mind. And that pass off, some firms will go with managing partners elect.
That's what I was going to ask you.
And have a 1 year overlap to ensure a nice, smooth leadership transition. But
what do you think about that, John? You like that?
I love it.
Okay.
I think it's great.
So it's basically
to see that
electing
overlap.
your next managing partner a year before they take the position. I know one firm that calls them senior vice president, senior executive VP or something like that. And the next year, it's sort of like the president-elect.
I like the idea. So you're not stepping into the role cold. And I'll talk to new managing partners. They'll come on down to our conference in Atlanta. Shameless plug, May 3rd and 4th. Seats still available. What's the biggest surprise when you stepped into the leadership role? And they'll scratch their head. John, I had no idea it takes so much time. No idea. All those got a minute conversations that are never a minute. Each individual partner sees what he or she sees. They don't see the totality of what you do every day, day in, day out. One of my favorite quotes among managing partners, John, I feel like the lone fire hydrant at the dog park. That's what I feel like. So it's often it's a challenging role, an important role. This just a little more data before I want to make sure we don't lose Uri, our last slide here. What kind of committees do you have in place?
And you like these committees, John, right? You like the committees because
sure. But deliberate, intentional with responsibilities and tasks, not just, we've always had that committee. And they've never met. They haven't met in 3 years. But, Bill's the head of that committee. And, he come on, if we're going to have tasks, I like the idea of task forces as opposed to standing committees. If we're going to have standing committees, they should remain standing for a reason, not just because we've always had one. Task forces, if it's defined project with a defined end, I like task forces. And here's a great place to identify your successors.
Yep.
Is, you know, assign some leadership roles through task forces, all that good stuff. This is the slide I really wanted to get to, and Uri alluded to it earlier, which are the 10 characteristics. There's more. And Uri, if you want to jump in, agree, disagree, embellish. In fact, you mentioned Elise Holtzman. She interviewed me and challenged me to come up with, I think it was 7 characteristics of
Good
successful
podcast.
law firms.
Good
So Uri,
podcast.
for you, I decided to add 3. So I
Thank
think
you.
the first characteristics is your credibility. You're honest, straightforward. Credibility and trust are earned, not just given because you're old, you've been around a while. Earned, and being very, very trustworthy and very, very credible. I think that's a very important characteristics, because a lot of people are coming to you, don't tell anybody I said this, but, and can you keep a secret? Can you maintain the trust? I think it's so important. The credibility to be a leader, the firm first mindset. It's not about me, power, money, ego. I care about the ship, the firm, and I'm but one captain on the ship. Each owner, each shareholder has a responsibility to be a good, I believe, good firm owner. Difference between a good owner and a good lawyer. But being truly firm first, it's genuine, it's authentic, people feel it. You're not playing sides because you come from the litigation department or you come from the Manhattan office, and we happen to have, you know, offices out in Long Island and Albany. But you don't forget about, you know, those departments from which you don't come, or those offices where you do not reside. Firm first, positive.
John,
Yes, sir.
on that firm first mindset, you know, everyone has some lawyers that have that reputation versus others in the firm. I don't think it's a firm first mindset before you become the managing partner. Now you're the managing partner, you suddenly are going to change. It doesn't work that way. I think there's some of your partners, you know, and this goes to choosing your successor for those who are on the call today, who are mostly managing partners, which is, who is the person who has that credibility of being a firm first mindset? You know, combine those two. Definitely, you know, think of who shares origination credit. I mean, that's really, that's where the road,
a team player.
Exactly. That's where somebody says, you know what? I'm going to share the credit, but you know why I'm going to do it? Because I know if Uri and John share that client, the client and therefore the firm is going to benefit long term. Some partners get that. Some partners demonstrate that. Others don't. So that's who you want to be your successor. That's an important, as you say, characteristic.
Well, and I hear, you know, if you're a multi-office law firm and you're not in headquarters, you tend to be forgotten and neglected. And I think as a leader, you need to go out and visit those offices from time to time. They are part of the firm. And I think deeds and actions are much more powerful than words. People are watching you as the leader of the firm. You set the tone and people watch. And if you're not one, if you come into the office, close your door, you know, do a little walk around. That can be very, very powerful. Larry Richard talks about the positivity. Lawyers tend to be, you know, negative. What's wrong with this? That'll never work. We've never done that before. Who else is doing it? Lawyers tend to be quick to criticize and not look at the silver lining. As managing partner, really important that you're positive. Dr. Richard would say, for every negative comment you have to make, you've got 3 genuine, sincere, positive things to say. That's what leaders do. It's inspiring, it's encouraging, you set the tone. And are we a firm of positivity or a firm of skepticism and negativity? And, you know, so you set that example, you set that tone, be positive if it kills you. Focusing on priorities. Here's where you got to get out of the day-to-day ditch and be deliberate and be intentional about the battles you pick. You're not trying to do everything for everybody. you're prioritizing and being very deliberate about your priorities, and don't let your time get sucked up on day-to-day stuff. And I think a COO is for firms these size. I was just reading an article about COO sharing. Those services are out there where you can get 1 or 2 days a week of really sharp law firm administration. You don't have to go all in full time. So those kind of timeshare deals with COOs, CMOs, they're out there. CFOs, they're out there. And you can get some really quality people who can, make a big, big difference. You're a change agent. Bring on the data. Bring on the examples of what other firms are doing. Invariably, among the first things you'll hear if you propose a new idea to your partners is, you know what it is. Who else is doing that? Uri and I try to provide you the data, the ammunition to tell your partners, well, here's who else is doing it. And here's the results that they enjoy. So hopefully we're pushing that data through to you. You can cherry pick through this stuff and maybe convince your partners that, we need a job description for our firm leaders. Executive committee members, what do you want me to do? I'm a member of the executive committee. Congratulations. What does that mean? So being that change agent, COVID, Uri and I have done a lot of programming around COVID. And, hey, we learned we can work remotely. We can. And now there are challenges associated with it, of course, but boy, a lot of change went on the last 2-3 years. Let's anchor that stuff, the good stuff, and bury it into our culture going forward, and resist the tendency to kind of go back to the way things used to be around here. Those days are long gone, long gone. Times are a-changing, and we got to look forward. Where we've been is important, but where we're going, I think far more important in terms of the future of the enterprise. Good communicator. You'll sound to yourself like a dead record, broken record. Communicate. I think it's hard to over communicate. Some people like written, some people like verbal, some people like charts, some people like pages of numbers. Multimodal, consistent. I love management by walking around. That's MBWA. And I see firm leaders often come in, close the door. We hardly know they're in the office. Make it a habit, especially smaller firms like yours. Get around. How was your weekend? How's that new puppy dog? You know how motivating that is to support staff when the managing partner comes rolling around and knows my dog's name? Wow, these people care about me, about my welfare. And you demonstrate that care through deeds and actions. And so walking around, checking in on people, especially COVID, there's some stress going on here that people may or may not be sharing with you. So make sure you get out and let people know how much you value, the firm values their contributions. My first firm, you got your anniversary card, your first year with the firm, you got a card, a gift certificate, nice flowers for your desk, made you feel valued. That's easy peasy. Your birthday wasn't a cake at the beginning of the month. You had your day and you got a card from the managing partner wishing you happy birthday. Those are very motivating and empowering things to do, particularly for your support staff, your associates. Communicate. Lead by example. Don't be a hypocrite. If it's important you show up at meetings on time, you're the first one in. If it's important that people get their time in, you're the first one in. You lead by example. Otherwise, you look like a hypocrite. You're dealing with smart people who can see right through hypocrisy, and you lose your credibility if you say one thing and do another. Everyone's going to have an individual marketing plan. I don't need one because I'm the managing partner, but everybody else around here needs a plan. No, as managing partner, yours should be the first one in. You're setting that example. This is leadership, leadership, keeper of the culture. This is so important, and we see how it got lost. Dealing with chronic underperformance, not fun, but important. Dealing with worse, toxic behavior, not fun, but important. Somebody's got to have that sit down, call it out, you know, and your tolerance for underperformance, your tolerance for toxic behavior, those are very clear signs of what your culture's all about. You are the keeper of the culture, and your culture is defined in large part by what you're willing to tolerate.
John,
You
I
wanna
just want to add one thing, which
Mhm.
is what you said, and you alluded to it, John, but I want to just emphasize, as the firm's culture keeper, and I think it's great the way you put underperforming there. A lot of times people will make the analysis or the calculus. I have an underperformer. He sits in the corner over there. It's okay. We overpay him by a little bit. It's okay. It only costs us X or Y. But I think, to your point, John, the way you are leading and the way people view you, the way you are viewing that underperformer, has far greater ramifications. In today's world, people are looking at you much more than just that little piece. It's not just a small economic piece. Others view you as the leaders. How do I view underperforming? That has a ripple effect through the entire firm.
Couldn't agree. And, you know, Meister writes about drivers and coasters, the drivers who are really carrying the firm forward versus the coasters who are just kind of along for the ride. And drivers get a little impatient with coasters. And the dead wood, what they perceive to be dead wood. And so your high energy people who are really going to light it up and take us forward don't like being around folks who are just coasting along. And a key word here is chronic underperformance. We can all have off years for whatever reason. But if it becomes, you know, a 3-4 year trend, call it out. And as you point out, Uri, we hit them through compensation. But the point of the matter is they set a tone, an expectation that, you know what, coasting is okay. It's okay. It's underperformance. It's okay. And then next thing you got 4 of them. And next thing you got 7 of them. Chronic. Call it out. And it's not fun. Leadership is not fun. Leadership's not easy. This is hard. And this is another reason why I think people like to cover themselves in day-to-day administration.
Okay.
Because they can avoid making some of these tougher but more impactful contributions, like calling out the bad behavior, calling out the toxicity. We've all heard the stories about powerful partners with big books of business who aren't very fun to deal with. You got to want to do this, I think, an appetite. So often firms, it's the senior lawyers that move into the leadership roles. It's the lawyers with the big books of business. I don't really want to do this. I'd rather be practicing law or making rain, but I guess it's my responsibility to take the baton. Not the right reason. Find people who have an appetite to lead. And again, you can spot them. You can see them in their resumes, actually. If you see class president, captain of the football team, people with some little extracurricular in their resumes, you can spot people who are leaders. Some firms will do psychological assessments to determine who our best leaders are likely to be, who our best rainmakers are likely to be. Now, when I did Elise's program a couple of weeks ago, I got a response from somebody who read our newsletter that says, you know what you're missing, John, on your list? And I added it, and that's self-awareness. And, read the room. Know the battles to pick, know when to fold them, read the room, be self-aware. People are watching you more clearly than you might realize. So lead by example, be positive, invest the time, get yourself a COO so you're not bogged down in the weeds. So that's what I got, Uri, for today's program.
John, that was great. We have said that we'll leave this time. First of all, thanks again, John. I'm actually going to turn off the recording now. So the recording will not have any of these questions, interactions. I think particularly on this topic, some of these questions might be specific, might not want this to be recorded. So I am going to stop the recording now and then give folks the time. I want to thank you, John. This was